Hello, everyone. This is the North American Sage, bringing to you a little sage knowledge. I was thinking today. I was thinking that, the way we run the calendar, how they say it's before and after the life of Jesus Christ, right? That whole name, Jesus, though, it bugs me a little bit. Because I was reading, I like to read the old tablets, no real truth. Not just not just the control systems. But the further back you go, you start to notice patterns. You start to see the truth. See what actually is going on. It's scary at first, most definitely. But then it's eye-opening. It changes you. And I'll bring a little bit of that change to you. Right here, right now. So let's take the name. Jesus, right? Jesus. Well, if you look back in the alphabet, you find out that the letter J wasn't even thought of or invented. It's an offshoot of the letter I, by the way. You can look this all up. The letter J wasn't even added to the alphabet until 100 to 300, 400 AD. That's after the death of Jesus, right? Because that's how our calendar's set up. And when you find that little nugget of truth out, you realize that J wasn't added to the alphabet till 100 years after the death of Jesus Christ, whose name starts with a J. Meaning that you would have to accept the fact that this guy was never called that. He was never called Jesus his entire life. What name are you praying to, for real? Well, let's take off the J. What are you left with? Asus. E-S-U-S. And when you translate Asus, it translates to Hail Zeus. Interesting, right? How do you say Jesus in Spanish? Jesus. Jesus. Quite interesting, isn't it? Now, the funny part about it is that Zeus, before, he was a Greek pantheon, because we all know Zeus, the king of the gods. We know his story. He defeated his father and took his throne to become king of the gods. And when you read the tablets, you find out that that particular storyline isn't original. Because before Zeus was a Greek pantheon, Zeus was a Samaritan pantheon. And before that, a king. Oh yeah, not much love for Zeus though. He was more feared. Look at him funny, it would cost you and your whole family their lives type of feared. So much so that he would decree that his name would be prayed to and praised and given power throughout the generations. Funny how we still doing that now. Jesus, right? The funny thing about that name Zeus, when you look into the Myth of Adapa tablets, you find out, well, not only do you find out that Eden wasn't a literal garden, it was more like an outside laboratory. You also find that that these created beings, Atum, the first of the Adapa. That's a story for another time. What we're talking about is the name. J not being created until 100 to 400 AD. That's after the life or after the death of Jesus, right? So, which means if the first letter of the name wasn't even created until 100 years after the guy died, he was never called that his entire life. Meaning that's not his name. That's not the person that walked this earth. That's not their name. That name, Jesus, take off the J, Jesus, translating to Hail Zeus. How do you say Jesus in Spanish? Jesus. Jesus. Been in your face this entire time. Matter of fact, so you can research the tablets and everything. His actual name was Yeshua. Mother's name was Mary, but you also find that Yeshua was a virgin birth, what we call in vitro fertilization. But when you look into the virgin births, you also find out that Mary's mother was also a virgin birth, in vitro fertilization. Meaning that they were trying to continue a line, a genetic code, a genetic line. We call it the Merovingian bloodline. But that's on some more of my research of why I think the United States was created and how it became to be what it is. What's actually going on here. But that's a whole nother thing. So now that you know the name that you were praying to, that has so much power, you say, is actually Zeus. That is the name you're praying to. When you say Jesus, you say Zeus. Jesus. Zeus. It's actually the N, because J didn't exist when the name was created. So now let me tell you about the picture. Now that we got the sound and pinpointed it, now let me show you the actual picture, the flower, and pinpoint. That fair-skinned, brown-haired, blue-eyed guy that's in every church in America. And also seen him in churches in Europe. That his name is Bolsha. Caesar Bolsha is his name. And he's the son of Pope Bolsha. The Pope's son, yeah, that same Pope's son that slept with his sister. Yeah, that same Pope's son that was dating two very famous painters during the Renaissance. Matter of fact, I believe that's the family that called for the Crusades. Because how'd they get all of those religious artifacts and archons so that they can whiten them out and lighten them up and paint them up? That was the whole job of these artists. I believe it was Leonardo and Michelangelo, my favorite turtles, you know. But they had a contest to deify the Pope's son, Caesar Borgia. And they did. Created a whole whitewashing scheme. You wonder why that whole whitewashing thing stuck. Wondered why so long ago And now, matter of fact, a couple of years ago, when they were calling to take down these images of Caesar bullshit around the world, why was it such an uproar? Yeah. You tell a lie enough times, it becomes the truth. You call the painting of Caesar bullshit, Jesus Christ, and mix his story up with a bunch of older stories. Build a whole cult around it. For decades, if you enslave the mind, the body will follow. And so now you know the name Jesus Christ of Nazareth. It's a made-up name. When you say the name of Jesus, what you're really saying is Hail Zeus. The letter J wasn't created until 100 and 400 AD, after the death. His entire life, the lifespan of that character, he would have never been called that. Not once. The picture of the light, fair-skinned, brown-haired, blue-eyed guy, I'm sure you've read the Holy Bible, right? I'm sure you read when Jesus ran from persecution from, was it Herod? From the Romans. He ran to Egypt, Kemet. You know where that's at? That's in Africa. You know what the people look like in Africa? Now, if you run and hide somewhere, it's because y'all look similar. That's why Judas had to point him out to the Romans so many times. He looked like everybody else. Wasn't very exceptional in any way. Just like a kid from the block. And now that the world's finding out that not only is his name Yeshua, the character that Jesus is based off of, but Yeshua was never crucified. Yeshua got married, had children. Look it up in the Ethiopian Bible, the first Bible, the Bible that's never changed in all these years, never been corrupted. And when you look into the real Bible, you start to notice things are told a little different. Things are spoken about a little differently. And I urge you to do your research. This has been Sage Knowledge.